I'd like to call to order the February 16th, 2021 Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes, here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Oper.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Here. Can we stand for the pledge?
Phone call.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. This evening, we don't have any comments from visitors, so I will be passing it on to Dr. Caleres for a superintendent's report.
Good evening, Mrs. Barcheck, Board of Education. Thank you so much. My comments this evening, I will defer to our two building administrators at the high school, Mr. Hare and Mr. Larson. They're going to be taking a little bit of time this evening to go over just some of the more specifics with the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. I know we announced it last time. And we have opened up that application process, and we're starting really to look at what that looks like for next school year. But I wanted Mr. Hare and Mr. Larson to come in this evening and just really present to the board the specifics of the Digital Learning Academy and kind of the vision for the first year rollout of the academy. I think with COVID and just some of the needs of our students, I think I said from the beginning, our job is to give options to all of our kids. And I think the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy definitely caters to a specific group of our students. And Mr. Hare and Mr. Larson have done a great job in devising their plan and structuring it. And so I will defer and give them a chance to talk a little bit and present. And then we'll have opportunities at the end for any of the board members to ask them questions regarding specifics. So Mr. Hare, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Dr. Caleres. I want to start out by thanking Mrs. Barcheck, Board of Education. Thanks for having us here this evening with the opportunity to share the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy and what that looks like for our students. Mr. Black, just make sure I'm good. I'm sharing my screen. All right, everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right,
yes.
Perfect. So the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy is scheduled to phase in and start next year. We want to make sure that we're ensuring the success of students with untraditional needs. So I wanted to start off talking just kind of the history in Brooklyn and what our support with online courses has looked like. So our online courses, currently called Hurricane Tech, began use the Plato platform, and they began to replace night school and summer school for students. It was started as a remediation for students with credit deficiencies, and then student completed courses in the summer and then also after school. So it had originally started where it was offered after school, where teachers were there and then students were able to spend time after school making up courses that they had failed previously. Currently, what it looks like for our building right now, students enrolled in Hurricane Tech throughout the day. We have teachers assigned to each period of the day. Students go in and are able to take courses that they need remediation in. Currently, we only have a few students that are completely online learners, meaning that they're taking all of their courses through the Digital Learning Academy. The majority of our students who are currently enrolled in that are taking a portion of their courses in person in the classroom, and then some of the courses that they need to make up for whatever reason or circumstance, they are taking through the Plato or Hurricane Tech. So the future, so something that we're very excited about moving forward is putting in place a model where we can better identify students who may need more of a self-paced environment and model, provide more purposeful interventions and supports for students that are struggling, and then increase with our teacher and staff involvement to ensure that we're supporting students beyond just the classroom, but also their socio-emotional and their other needs that they may have.
Excellent. So here's a little snapshot as to what the future is going to be looking like, kind of what we have in mind when we're designing the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy moving forward. Again, it's designed to support students in unique situations. We know the traditional model is not necessarily the best for every single student that comes through our doors. So in order to be better, realistic, and to meet the needs of the students and the variety of learning styles that we're going to encounter, I want to make sure that we flesh this out a little bit more and make sure that the Digital Learning Academy does what it is that we need it to do. It'll be a fully online learning platform. First, we're going to be focusing mainly on students who are grades 10 through 12 and that are possessing grade level learning aptitudes. And one of the reasons for that we're not offering it for freshmen is because we want to give them an opportunity to experience the high school at a traditional model. However, if they go into the 10th grade and they are credit deficient, maybe it's time for us to identify them and move forward with a more specific plan. Instruction will continue to be delivered by Brooklyn City Schools certified teachers and staff. Physically and emotionally safe learning environment. This is going to be an important piece for us. We want to make sure that we're providing for these students. We know that some of these students struggle from an academic perspective, but unfortunately, some of them will also suffer from emotional issues as well that we would like to address and kind of develop that whole student approach. Same curriculum offered to the students in a traditional classroom setting. These students will be preparing for the end of course assessments, same as every other student in Brooklyn schools. We want to make sure that the curriculum is at that same level or near to it as best as we can mimic. Access to elective courses and Polaris Career Center. So looking at the online databases, we want to make sure that our students can get more than just the core courses. We want to offer them other options for themselves. And at the same time, still provide them some of the outside of Brooklyn opportunities that the other students have with Polaris Career Center. Do you mind going, Brett? Thank you. All credit recovery courses are still going to be available through Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy, same as they are right now. Intervention specialists will be available during both sessions of the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy to provide services for those students who need to meet reading goals or to have math goals specifically met for them. Flexible schedules, we're going to see in a couple slides here what the hours will look like, and you'll see this will provide our students with an opportunity to work, or as I mentioned before, attend Polaris Career Center. And then a big piece is making sure that the students are not just getting their high school criteria met, but that when they leave Brooklyn, regardless of how they earned their diploma, that they are prepared for that next step in life. So making sure that that transition from high school to either a career or into a 2 or 4 year degree is still going to be planned and certainly overseen by our school counselors and by administration.
So our objectives when we're looking at the 2021-2022 school year, obviously this is going to be a new platform and a new program for our students. Our goal is to enroll 20 full-time students per session in the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. So there'll be 2 sessions, which we'll speak on later in the presentation. We want to refine the identification and recommendation process for students who would benefit from enrolling in the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. We started that work this year, putting in place a team and a process in order to better identify students and make sure that we really had a good way to support those students and their enrollment in recovery courses. Because in the past, it was very much transient in and out, and we really wanted to put a good system in place that would effectively allow us to support the students. We want to continue to offer our credit recovery options for our students. Obviously, our goal at Brooklyn High School is that students graduate as the best product that they can be, ready to enter the workforce, go to college, military, whatever that might be, that there are no doors closed to them for their opportunities and whatever decision they make once they leave Brooklyn High School. That's something that Mr. Larson and I both feel very strongly about, and I know is the feeling with the district and also our community as well. We want to develop community partners to help students find gainful employment. So we've looked at and started to discuss some different options within our community that we can offer mentor or shadow opportunities, part-time work, some different opportunities to really get some students some exposure to what the workplace might look for, maybe interest-based. If you want to learn about being a car mechanic, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to go and work with a community partner to see what that really looks like. We want to reduce credit deficient students throughout the building. And then we also want to reduce student enrollment in online learning platforms from outside the school district. So we do have some students that are enrolled in online learning platforms that are not sponsored by Brooklyn City Schools. And that's something that we feel with our experience this year, our experiences from the past is just a platform that we think we can do a better job at. And we want to encourage our families that are looking for a better option for their students, where their students are really getting the support that they need from instructors. Those instructors are in the building, they're right down the street. It's not somebody in a different state or a different community. We know our community and we know our kids, and we want to be able to support those kids.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
With that, obviously, you're emphasizing you want to go after those that are on the bubble per se for the most in need. If there are any kids in the district that 10th, 11th or 12th grade in the past year, couple of years, that have left the district for whatever reason, say they dropped out, whatever issue they had, would they be able to fall in this? Would this almost like take over for like a GED program where they could step back in and get everything else done and then make up those credits and graduate from Brooklyn?
So that would depend on where they're at in their kind of timer for high school education. So once you enter high school, the 9th grade, the timer kind of starts for those students. So it'd be very much an individual, on an individual basis for those students. But I think with the process and what we're pushing and looking to move forward with, we're going to have the system in place to really be able to meet with those students, meet with those families, identify what we can offer immediately through the Digital Learning Academy, but then also offer alternatives if that's needed. So,
Okay.
you know, we do have students from time to time that for whatever reason, you know, may decide that high school isn't working for them or their family at that time. But yes, that's definitely an opportunity. And I think when we speak to the system and the process that we want to put in place, that's really where we're going to be able to support those students and those families.
Okay, I appreciate it. I mean, I know that this is, you know, it'd be corny. We're kind of planting a seed here and we're going to water it as best we can and hope it grows into something, you know, bigger and better every year. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we do continue to provide services for students who didn't complete high school with their cohort that they came in, so the standard 4 years. So we're still providing some services for those students who are in their 5th year. I would assume that those services would continue as well. But maybe with a little bit more focused intervention kind of thing.
All right, thank you.
Question.
Go ahead, Rick.
I have a question. Yeah, a question is, what makes us unique from other digital academies that'll draw the crowds to Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy versus some of the existing platforms that are out there?
Yeah, so a lot of the feedback we've gotten, especially from students that come back to us from the other online learning platforms, is that they're just not personal. So it's not where, you know, we have their instructors that they give these students their classes and they monitor them, but we're going to have an instructor in the building that a student can go see and sit down and get specific support. We have it worked out in the schedule that we're going to provide content specific supports from teachers. So for example, let's say you're a student that struggles in math. Instead of you just having a teacher who says, hey, Johnny, keep working on your math, you know, you're not making enough progress. We're going to have a teacher who says, hey, Johnny, I want you to come in. We're going to spend some time. I'm going to tutor you and I'm going to really help you lock this down so you can be successful in it. It's that personal piece, our ability to, as a team, and the team we're putting in place to be able to support families too. A lot of times students are frustrated. They haven't felt success. They've really struggled academically or with, you know, school. So this is really going to be a way for us to support those families as well. Help us get these students to where they're on a path where they can achieve success. I think the third big piece is we're going to offer those community partnerships. We're going to work with students to help them find opportunities, look for some career planning, help support the social emotional. A lot of times the online learning platforms are just that. It's just an online learning platform, whereas our focus is really going to be on the whole student, which is where we're going to make a big difference with our kids. Us having a student who graduates from the Learning Academy solely with a diploma, but no other skills, none of the soft skills, that's not going to be good enough for us. So we really want to take that approach with our students.
I would agree. I just want to expand on that. What you just said too, Brian, was, well, we open up extracurricular activities to these same students.
So these students, assuming that they're meeting the academic eligibility, would have the opportunity to participate in those extracurriculars. I think we're all on board and know the impact that being in an extracurricular has on a student, on their confidence, on their ability to build relationships. And especially in today's times where a lot of our students struggle with some of those conversation building friendships because so much is based on technology, that those in-person skills are so much more important for our students to gain through those interactions with peers. So absolutely, as long as they're meeting those criteria, we're going to encourage that.
That's where that would come in. I know you and I spoke starting well over a year ago about having members of the community and business community coming in and conducting interviews and letting the students go through the interview process. Just the hardest question I've ever been asked is, why should I hire you?
Right.
For these kids to get any kind of experience to go through that, I think is going to be invaluable.
Well, and the reality of it too is when you're entering the workforce, if you can say, especially if you're going right to work, hey, I interned, this is a person, a contact that you can reach out to, that can speak to my work ethic, my ability to learn on the job, all those pieces that are going to make you more employable. Those are some things that we can target and help build students so that really when they go to an employer, it's not just I graduated high school, that's what I got. It's, hey, I have these different skills. I've shown my ability to be successful, and this is how I'm going to help you and support your business.
Will we be thinking about using this in the summer to catch up or to go forward?
So currently we do offer those courses, credit recovery courses in the summer. I don't think we've discussed this to the point of holding the platform and running these courses throughout the summer. I think that would be a deeper discussion. I think to start, we really want to focus on that academic piece in the school year, but I think expansion is something that, we've definitely discussed and we have a plan in place on where to start and limitations on that. I think one of the great things is Dr. Collares' support in letting us continue to brainstorm and really put the sky as the limit on that and not letting it, we're not going to get into a box where we're restricted to that box, but we're really going to be able to develop the plan. We're going to make changes, we're going to adapt, and we're going to really make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students.
Thanks.
No, this is going to be, I'm just happy as hell with this. I mean, I said it before, when I graduated in 87 and the administration back then, they told you, this is what you needed to do. They like illuminated the bare minimum of what you had to do to just get by. And kids tried to get to that. So where with this, I think that kids are shooting for the moon. And they're just looking, I just think that this is gonna really put a mark on the school.
Mr. Larson, you want to touch on what the schedule looks like?
Yeah. So to get back to what Mr. Singer had asked, why is this better than maybe other platforms, is because this also allows us to have a little bit more structure than some of those programs. So some of those programs are kind of a little too self-paced in the sense that it provides a little too much freedom to students. Certainly, we know that some students flourish underneath that particular in that particular setting, but we also know that students need to have a little bit of structure provided for them. So we're going to be offering 2 different sessions for students to take part in. The AM session looks like it'll be from 8 o'clock until 11, and then again and from 12 o'clock until 3, and this will be 5 days a week. This works twofold. It also shortens the day because that is, again, these are untraditional students that didn't function perhaps maybe as well as some of the other students in a standard setting, but it also allows them to take part in Polaris, which is really helpful for them. The application process, families are going to apply to the program. So there'll be a little bit more buy-in from some of our parents because they're going to be actively pursuing this as an option as well. The team processes the applications. So we, as Mr. Hare pointed out, we've already kind of started a process here this year when we review students to determine whether or not they're a good candidate for a Hurricane Tech. And as we expand that to be more the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy, we've got a really nice process down where we review the case of the student and determine where their needs are the greatest so we can provide for them what it is that they need. Currently, we're looking at a teacher is with us, a couple of counselors, and then an administrator is on the team at the moment. What we would like to do is be a little bit more inclusive, have an administrator, a teacher, an intervention specialist, especially for those students who do have goals on individualized education plans, and then of course a counselor, because that piece will be invaluable as we also plan for that life after high school.
Question.
Mhm.
Matt or Brian, is this open to IEP students that might, let's say, we have a
Yep.
student that it might have some issues, dealing with, people in the public, and would this be open to that sort of student?
Yep, so absolutely. So we're going to have intervention specialist who's going to be really help support that team. Then I think something that's a little unique is a lot of the online platforms that are currently offered is you have one teacher, but that teacher may not be a math teacher, a science teacher. So they're not experts in the content. So one of the differences is that we're going to schedule teachers that are experts in the content to help students with specific needs. They're going to be students that come into the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy who are absolute rock stars at reading, ELA, writing, but may really struggle in math or some other subjects. So we're going to really support them with those individual teachers that are content specific experts. And then what we're going to do also is have those intervention specialists to support interventions, different needs. When we look at the RTI process, there's a lot of different opportunities that those intervention specialists will be able to provide.
Does that include any kind of like speech therapy, audiology, any students that might have issues physically?
Yep. So Rick, in the design with that intervention specialist piece, what that's going to allow is that intervention specialist to be the case manager for those students. So those students that need other resources, may need some occupational resources, et cetera, to be able to support them and be the case manager. So they're aware and understand those student specific needs through that. So if a student were to have an IEP, that intervention specialist would then be the case manager and be able to support that student, their goals, make sure that we're achieving those, make sure that they're receiving their accommodations, all those different pieces that go into that.
Good. Thank you.
Yep. So what we've done is we've put together a couple different model scenarios. So we wanted to show to the board just what this might look at like for some different types of students. So to start out, we've got a couple different scenarios that Mr. Larson, you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Mr. Hare pointed out, we some of these are drawn from, maybe not based on a student that we're currently experiencing, but what we tried to do was either profile a student, obviously not naming them outright, but profile a student who's benefiting from our system right now and how we can probably perfect that a little bit. And then some of these are going to be kind of an amalgamation of multiple students that we have in the building. So profile number one, we're looking at a student who attends Polaris. So they're only in our building for half of the day, but they want to complete requirements for an honors diploma. So we know when they return, they may be only able to complete 4 courses on their schedule, but they want to get that 4th science class in. They want to get that 4th social studies class in before they graduate, but they wouldn't be able to do so with their other goal also being attending Polaris. So Polaris schedule doesn't allow the student to enroll in these additional courses and complete the program requirements for Polaris. So what this can do with the electives that we have on whatever platform that we're choosing to go with is going to be allowing the student to attend those courses outside of the school day. But again, these would be monitored still and assisted by teachers and administration through this process. And that student will be able to reach his or her goal of completing the course requirements over at Polaris. So they'll be specialized, perhaps to start their career right after high school, but also earn that honors diploma by being able to complete the additional coursework.
The second profile we have is for a family that might choose to remain remote due to COVID concerns. So this would be a situation where they applied to the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. They still would report to the building, but we would still be able to offer a shortened school day, no transitions throughout the building, and then also small class sizes. They would receive assisted instruction from teachers, and then also some socio-emotional intervention. So it's another piece that I think with everything that's gone on, if there was a student who had health concerns or some major piece that was really restricting them from accessing the normal school day, that might be an opportunity that we could participate
Hey, Brian and Matt, could you just talk a little bit, because our program we're looking at here is a little bit unique in the fact that we want the kids to come in at least to see parts of the day to see them. Can you talk a little bit about why we're going down that pathway for the board, just so they understand, because I think that's a big important piece in our academy.
Yep. So we really feel that personal relationship that students will build with the staff is such a big key to our students having that success. So what we've seen, and we've seen it firsthand this year, and some of our remote students, is they really struggle to connect. And I think what we found is that without that connection, you're not going to see the same level of success as if you've built a connection. If you've got someone and you know somebody's making sure that you're doing what you need to get done, that you're staying positive, and that you're achieving your goals. Some of those reminders are the important pieces. But then also we talk about some of the socio-emotional. When you're just sitting behind a computer screen, it's very hard for us to support your needs through social-emotional. Again, we talked about those soft skills, some of those different opportunities to be able to support students. We've seen a rise in adolescence to depression over this time because so many students have been remote. They feel secluded. We want to really make sure that we're supporting those students so that they have the confidence and those different skills that are going to allow them to be successful.
Yeah, and to add to what Brian just said, we're conducting meetings to meet to discuss student attendance issues. And a lot of times those students are remote. And so what we're finding is that this will also keep them a little bit more on track and on pace with the rest of their peers, which is extremely important. But just like what Mr. Hare said, it's so important for these students to have contact with somebody in a safe environment where they're not going to be here for the extended day. There's going to be, no transitions for these students. I think it's really, really important for those students to have that interaction, because like Mr. Hare pointed out, that social emotional piece, it's so much easier, it's so much more efficient when the student is in the building receiving some of those services, whether it's explicitly or just simply by having contact with another human being.
I think the last big piece too is the academic piece. Like, we're still an academic institution, and we really feel that in order for our students to achieve mastery, really fully comprehend material, they need someone there who can answer a question. Answering a question through a chat or 10 minutes later, we missed our mark. Whereas if we're able to say, a student's able to raise their hand and I'm able to provide a teacher who's able to go over and support that student immediately, we're able to help and guide that student to achieving levels of mastery. The goal of this is not to limit or lower our expectations, but is actually to allow our students that opportunity to really achieve and feel success. And if we're able to immediately support the student, that's going to limit the frustration level, which will then allow them to continue to feel that success. So when they face challenges, they know someone's there and really has their back to support them.
Question.
Yep.
So I'm trying to digest the process here. So how does a teacher that's involved in the Brooklyn Digital Academy or intervention specialist, how do they identify a child who might be doing okay academically, but Matt, I think you mentioned about the social, psychological fallout that they may not be functioning very well or in depression. So who gets to identify that student and kind of raises the alarms and flags and say, we need to do some additional intervention, maybe not academic intervention, but psychological intervention?
Yep. So I think that's going to fall on, there's not an individual person that's going to fall on. That's going to fall on our team. So we'll have an administrator there helping support it. We'll have teachers helping support it, but then we're also going to have our counselors in there helping support it as well. They're going to offer some of the Naviance and some of the different opportunities that we provide for the career base, but then also some time for students to talk. Having an opportunity, an open room with peers you've built relationships with. It's amazing how much power we can have when students are able to talk about, hey, this is going on. A student may be able to support them, a teacher support them, a counselor support them. We have our GuideStone resources. I think Mr. Larson has run a few socio-emotional sessions through our PEP connections. So, that we have the different resources to use. It'll just be installing them into the Digital Learning Academy to be able to help support our students.
Thank you.
Yep, we're going to go to our next profile.
And that actually was a nice segue. Thank you, Mr. Singer. I appreciate that. So this student in particular is going to be somebody who already has a diagnosis. So we're looking at somebody who already has been monitored by their family or maybe a teacher prior in their school career. And they've been identified with anxiety or depression or in both. And we've seen that this year, certainly. And they're struggling. They're struggling with the circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment, but they're also struggling even just in a standard classroom setting. So this student has already been given a medical diagnosis and has a 504 that's put in place for the student to provide them some type of services or some type of accommodation that will allow them to be successful. So they're going to benefit from this alternative setting in a self-paced learning environment. The school will be working with the family to monitor the progress of that student, both again, academically, but also that social emotional piece. And that's where having that teacher in the classroom, that intervention specialist in the classroom with the student to help kind of monitor that will allow us to make sure that that student is making progress and that they're on their way to being successful.
I would assume that with that, if we had a student in that situation with a 504 and say whatever their condition is, anxiety, depression, I'm sure there's a laundry list of different things.
Mhm.
Will have the ability, if their condition worsens for a period of time, to just kind of expand the program and allow them in, and then, you know, if they return to their traditional process prior to, I mean, we have that flexibility, correct?
Are we saying transferring from Brooklyn High School standard classroom setting into Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy and then back into the high school?
Yeah, like say if for whatever their medical need would be, their anxiety was so overwhelming that all of a sudden now the non-traditional would fit them better, and then their condition, whatever it may be, improves at a point they wish to return back to their traditional program prior to.
Yeah, I think in that situation, we would certainly review that and do whatever we think is best in the case of the student. I would hate to keep a student in a setting when it looks like they might be able to go back into another setting and be just as successful. So I don't think anything is written in stone for the students. We do have to remember that whether you're part of the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy or part of the standard high school, you're still a Brooklyn City School student. So that transition from one into the next, you know, we can certainly look at what that process looks like.
Thank you.
Yep.
So our fourth profile is a student who's underperformed in his freshman year and sophomore years. So they attend BHS for courses part-time with other students in their cohort. So they would be at grade level taking courses there, and then they would complete courses part-time through the Digital Learning Academy the other half of the day. So I think that that's, you know, really an opportunity for students that, you know, maybe as a freshman and sophomore weren't on the ball. You know, because of for whatever reason they weren't motivated, weren't successful, but to allow them to continue to progress with their normal grade level, and then also provide the support so that they can continue and make up the other courses to get them to an on-time graduation.
And then the last of the profiles here is the one that, and we're fortunate, Brooklyn doesn't seem to suffer from this very often, but we know we do have students who struggle with behavioral issues, whether those are diagnosed or not. They've got a history of violating the code of conduct, and they don't seem to be functioning well in the classroom setting or in the standard building setting. Placement in the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy could be the result of a meeting between the school and the parent, or as a result of the discipline hearing where an alternative placement replaces a more severe consequence. I think the expulsion is always a dangerous game, and we want to make sure that we don't give up on the student. And expulsion is obviously for the safety of the other students, but we want to make sure that we are still servicing the needs of the student that we need to give a consequence to. So Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy could, in some situations, provide that as a possible alternative for discipline. The student would then be a full-time BDLA student, Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy student, and work within a shortened day, again, at their own pace with academic and behavioral supports put in place for that student to make sure that the behavior is addressed for sure, and that we're, again, working to kind of progress that student so that they're going to be successful after they leave either Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy or the high school.
So it comes to our application process. So this is going to be a program that students and families really will apply to. So it's going to be open to students 10th through 12th grade. Will be available to 9th graders with my permission. And that's really will be a team decision to help support that. But there are certain cases where we really need to start supporting a student in this model sooner or earlier. You know, we speak to some of the medical pieces, for example, the anxiety. Some of that may limit a 9th grader from being able to be successful in the classroom. So that's really what we want to focus. We don't want to, again, I spoke to earlier, we don't want to put ourselves in a box with this. We want to be able to continually support students and continue to evolve our program to make sure we're meeting the needs of our families. It is open right now, applications. So that link has been sent out by Dr. Caleres, and we'll continue to advertise that for those students and families to apply that feel that this might be the best model for their student to be successful. And then once the application process is complete, we'll correspond with families and sit down and meet with families to be able to, speak with them and really get their story. I think that that's really what this process has to be about, is understanding the family and the student's story to make sure that this is the right model for them, but then also to make sure that our supports are in place to really help support them in their success.
And this link is located on our website. So under, if you go to schools, under Brooklyn, and a new school will pop up. It'll say Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. So everything's located on the website. Mr. Hare.
Dr. Ted, is there going to be some?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a couple questions. I want to wait till you were all done, if that's okay. Some of the profiles that were mentioned. The first one, Polaris. If the student goes to Polaris either in the morning or in the afternoon, and then vice versa, let's say they're going to Polaris in the morning and their BHS classes are in the afternoon. If they want to do extra classes, these would be after hours then. Would there
in that scenario, yeah.
Would there be a one-on-one instruction with a member of the staff as far as a teacher goes? How does that work?
So in those specific cases, what we would do is set up a time for them to meet with staff. So if you look at our times will actually allow for them to meet with our staff outside of the specific Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy. And there's also some transition time built into the schedule for when Polaris students come back or leave. So that's really where those meetings, and those would be more individual meetings for those students based on their needs. So if you had a full schedule when you came back to Brooklyn and were a Polaris student, then that transition time is really where we're going to meet with those students during our intervention time for the school.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned, 20 students initially we're looking at perhaps filling this with.
Yep.
Now, I know we had talked about this, when Dr. Caleres came on board, as far as the fact that digital learning is going to be the future. Are we, and this is also going to be used as a device to bring back some of the students that we're not going to Brooklyn, we're going to an online school. If we have more than 20 at this point, do we look at how do we expand this? Do we take this Brooklyn students kind of first come, first serve, and then if there's spots open it up to outside applicants that are in the district but outside?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's all of the above. I think what the program looks like year one is gonna be very different year 2, year 3, and year 4. And so I think we're gonna have to transition into what this model looks like. I think from my seat, I see two real options, two things here: trying to service our current Brooklyn students and giving them options to be successful, right? But I also look at what can I do, what can we do to bring some of those online academy students back to us, because I believe we can do it better. And I don't think those numbers are so overwhelming that it would overwhelm what Mr. Hare and Mr. Larson are trying to accomplish, during the day. But I think we just have to see, if Brian and Matt came to me at some point and said, okay, our numbers are blossoming and we need to look at some other things, I think we can do that. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to be also, responsibly responsible with the finances too, because I think right now we're able to initiate this program for relatively low cost in terms of nothing additional to the general fund, which I think is important. And then I want to start bringing back some of those kids. So I think really, if we can get 20 in the morning and 20 in the afternoon, that's 40 students. That's a good starting point. We'll just have to see. I think wait and see how it develops and kind of go from there. And I do anticipate this academy for some of our students. I think somebody mentioned it, kind of being that in and out type program, right? They had a tough sophomore first semester for whatever reason. We get them in there, but everything, they're getting back on their feet. We try to get them back into the regular classes that second semester. So I think what the academy does is it gives kids options so they don't continuously fall behind in their graduation pathway. I think we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
The second profile mentioned bringing the students in and basically being online, but in the building itself. Do we envision that like one general area where the kids will be all online, but talking to different instructors and then taking different classes at the same time, and like in a common area or something like that? Or maybe I'm going a little bit too far ahead.
Want to talk a little bit about the tenant, like what we're thinking, where this is going to be tenanted?
Yeah, so we're looking at using room 173. So that's going to allow us some different opportunities. One, it's an alternate entrance, so that we can bring some of those students in throughout the day. The transition piece, I think, is big. There's a restroom right there. It's right near the administrative, the counseling office. Our Guidestone counselor also works right there. So when we talk about kind of where our resources are centralized, that's going to be a great place for them. It's a big room. There's room for kids to really spread out. When you speak to students being online, so they'll be using the online platform, and then we're going to have those content specific teachers come in to support those students in those classes. So you may be taking your Algebra 1 course, but then the math teacher who is responsible for that session will come in. So you'll switch to Algebra 1, and that math teacher will be there to support you if you have questions or need help, need an example, need something explained. That's really where we're going to provide those supports and allow our kids to be successful.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. 173.
Yeah, I think when we looked in Mr. Larson and Dr. Claris and I have kind of walked around the building and we brainstormed some different locations and really feel that that's going to be the best opportunity and space for us to be successful in providing what we need to provide for our students to be successful.
Okay, thank you.
Are we going to reconfigure 173?
I mean, we're gonna put some new furniture in there. We're gonna put some new carpeting. We're gonna clean it up with paint. I mean, we're gonna be doing some things to bring it to 2021. I generally see that that room eventually moving towards a kind of a common community room that hopefully we can as a Board of Education and kind of retake over as some of our meeting space for our board meetings. So I'm hoping that room will become a multi-use room at some point, but we need to bring it up we need some new paint, new carpeting, and just to clean it up a little bit. That's all. It's a tough room to reconfigure just because of the stadium seating format. There's really not much you can do outside of kind of, we got some opportunities in the back. As soon as you walk in, there's some open space, but I think Brian and Matt are going to be using that for some of that individual work area space with kids and teachers.
Yeah, I guess I just not envisioning 10 different teachers talking to 10 different students about 10 different topics and it being kind of a.
Yeah, so we're, Dr. Claris, I'm going to.
No, you're fine.
So we're also speaking about the current Hurricane Tech Room or lab, also using that as another alternative space where we can provide some of those small group pieces. So let's say that you have a group of students working with an instructor in the main room, and then you've got 3-4 students who have maybe some content specific questions, that might be an alternative place where some students could go and meet with that specific instructor to be able to help support them there too. So I think, Mr. Oper, you brought up a great point, but that is something that we've also considered in our planning as well.
Yeah, as long as you can lump as many together as possible, that you, yeah, right. Okay, makes sense.
Any other questions for Mr. Hare and Mr. Larson?
No.
Guys. Yeah, Brian, just wrote last quick question. When do you anticipate having some preliminary numbers? Mid-April, closer to May?
Probably end of April, I think it would be our goal. So we'll be working through the scheduling process and that, and then really that'll be the next piece that we really work on because we want to have those. I think a big piece that we've talked about and discussed is we want to be able to have the time to sit down and really have those meetings with families, not just making these decisions based on students, but being able to support the whole family.
Great. Thanks so much.
I would assume that you guys, the next step is the administrator that's going to fill that position. You guys have all that going on as well. So.
Yeah, we're hopefully I'll have a recommendation to you by March 16th for that approval. And then hopefully involved in that contract will be some transition time for the new administrator, because they're going to be living in two worlds, both the digital academy world and the athletic world. So we want to get this person in as much as we can between now and August 1st. But yeah, once we get that person identified, then they'll begin working with Brian, Matt, and then Jim Verba in terms of the transition for those two positions.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? No?
That's my report, Mrs. Barczyk. I'm all done.
Thank you, Dr. Caleres.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions, guys. They were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Now on to Mrs. A's report, our treasurer report.
Yep. There's no major update. I just checked our website before the meeting today. The ESSER 2 money that was anticipated, the 1.5 million, has not dropped yet, so we haven't received it yet, but we are still anticipating it to come. And when it does, I will let you guys know.
Thank you. Now on to board committee members, committee reports, and board member comments. And we're going to start off today with Mr. Oper.
Thank you. Polaris report, as of today, since August 1st, Brooklyn is probably running kind of neck and neck with Polaris as far as number of cases. Polaris has 51 students, 1 teacher, and 2 since August 1st. 4 are currently active. As is normal in February, there's no official meeting this month, but each member arranges a meeting with superintendent and treasurer to go over goals and objectives. And this gives each member a chance for some deep dive questions and feedback on what we're thinking about for the coming year. I mentioned the sophomore virtual visits. Now there can be in-person visits on Tuesdays at Polaris, and one-on-one opportunities. If they schedule it, they can come in and explore the campus and get specific questions answered. The tours will be on Tuesdays every 30 minutes from 3 to 7, now through the end of March. And of course, there will be the social distancing protocols in place. And I read it online after Rocky had sent it to me, but Chef O got another award, his 11th ProStar Teacher of Distinction Award. There's just, I don't even want to read them all. I've got them all listed here, but he's won National ProStar twice and Ohio ProStar 11 times, and American Culinary Federation and Ohio Restaurant Outstanding Industry Educator Award and Crystal Apple and all kinds of stuff. So congratulations to him. I'd like to congratulate the 249 honor roll and 126 merit roll students for the first quarter, for their first quarter achievements. And on our agenda tonight is the fact that we're putting $150,000 from the general fund into the permanent improvement line. And since we don't have a permanent improvement levy, anything we can set aside for this purpose, if we have it, is money well saved. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Oper. I have a question for you. Is there any opportunity or chance that we could have a drive-through to go Polaris dinner this year? Any chance at all? Any chance?
I can only ask.
Thank you. We'd really appreciate it. We don't want to miss 2 years in a row. Now on to Mr. Rick Singer.
Yes, I don't have much of a report, but I do want to recognize the honor roll and merit roll recipients for the second quarter. Congratulations, and keep going to the third and fourth quarters. Make us Brooklyn proud. Thank you. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. Now on to Mr. Rob Slattery.
Real quick, I'd like to say congratulations to the kids as well, the honor roll and merit roll. I don't think that we can emphasize that enough, what hard work goes into that. I certainly didn't do that when I was there, but I wish I would have. And the rec board meeting was canceled. We will hear from Mr. Abruzzi from the rec center, and I'm sure we'll have one in March. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Slattery. Now on to Mr. Rocky Neal.
All right, I'd like to congratulate all the honor roll and merit rollers as well, too. I did reach out to the State Board of Education president. Her and I exchanged emails. I told her what I was going to do. I wanted to upgrade my report and bring you a little more state school stuff from the president. So I'm going to be bringing some of that legislative stuff to you, as well as I just saw they had a meeting for a summarization of the new report card for the 2021. So once I get a little more detail, I'm going to bring that to the table as well too. All righty. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I would also like to congratulate all our honor and merit roll and all the achievements of our students. Congratulations and keep up the hard work. And we do realize all the hard work you have to put in for that. I would like to recognize one of our own Brooklyn wrestlers, Miss Sophia Collins, represented Brooklyn well. Congratulations, Sophia. We're so proud of you. Let's see here. I can always be reached at 216-406-4304 if anyone would like to speak to me and about anything school board related. Unfortunately, this year's Europe trip has been canceled by EF Tours. The 9th through 11th graders are able to reschedule or receive a refund minus $350. The seniors are offered a voucher or refund minus the $350. There's a global pandemic going on, and the decision to cancel the trip was not the schools or the students. In my opinion, I think it is unfair of EF Tours to charge $350 cancellation fee. Many of our students were paying for the trip by working countless hours. The current minimum wage in Ohio is $8.55. That means a student would have to work a minimum of 41 hours before taxes or minimum 51 hours with taxes taken out. That is 41 or 51 hours our student wasn't studying, wasn't attending a school activity, wasn't attending a practice, wasn't attending a rehearsal, or wasn't attending a game. They were sacrificing their time to pay for a trip. In my opinion, it is unfair for EF Tours to charge $350 for a trip they canceled. I hope we look for a different tour company for future international tour trips, and I would ask that our administration start looking now for another company and another option for our families and our students. Thank you. And now we are on to the reading of board minutes and board financial statements, and our reader tonight is Mr. Oper.
Thank you. Resolved that the minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 Board of Education meeting be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements of receipts and expenditures for the month of January 2021, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month as submitted.
Can I have a motion, please?
Moved.
So moved.
Second? Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby enters into an agreement with J&F Luxury Travel Incorporated, doing business as J&F Transportation Company for transportation of Brooklyn students for the 2021, 2022, and 2022-2023 school years, effective August 1st, 2021. Agreement is on file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments, please?
Mrs.
Anyone?
Barczyk, yeah, Ms. Barczyk, this is, we're, as we discussed before, we're slowly bringing our Brooklyn transportation back online. We're still going to need to supplement with J&F. J&F has taken our
Parma.
our athletic trips occasionally when Parma hasn't filled in. And so they're going to help us with some of that transition. They'll be running some of our morning runs, but they'll also be looking at most of our athletic runs and activity runs for the next couple of years. So we're excited to be in official partnership with them.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the day when we can see the Brooklyn name on the buses as they roll down, you know, Biddulph, Ridge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, Mrs. Sefcik has been taken out, has been doing a couple trips. So it's been out this winter a little bit, but hopefully full force next year for sure.
thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby enters into an agreement with Judith Eugene Wellness, LLC, Loving Hands Yoga, effective February 9th, 2021 through June 1st, 2021. Agreement is on file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Ms. Barczyk, this is one of our wellness initiatives for our staff. Comes out of wellness funds, so really no general impact on our general fund. And it's just something that we've just recently started through the Wellness Committee, and it's all virtual.
Okay, and it's free for all of our teachers and all of our staff to attend?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Brooklyn City School District of Education hereby commends the following students for their academic achievement as noted: the honor roll and merit roll, 249 honor roll and 126 merit roll.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Great job.
Great job in this difficult time you guys have been facing.
Mhm.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby acknowledges the attached student as having completed all graduation requirements for Brooklyn High School and therefore approves the graduation of said student effective January 22nd, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Either way.
Questions, comments?
Should I have read the name or no? It doesn't matter?
No, you're
No?
fine.
Okay, all right.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Good job,
Congratulations.
Mr. Quinn.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Dania Al-Mataha as a classified substitute for the 2020-2021 school year, contingent on satisfactory completion of all credentials and background checks.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Questions, comments?
Ms. Barczyk, this is a replacement of one of our two classroom assistant positions. We're approving her as a sub because she has not met her qualifications yet. So once she takes her licensing test, we'll recommend her for a full-time classroom assistant position.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following on-call substitute personnel for the 2020-2021 school year. Anita Bruzek as athletic aide, custodial cleaning, library media, cafeteria, playground monitor, treasurer's office personnel, classroom assistant, and secretarial.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I
Second.
have a second? Questions, comments?
Is there anything that you not on that list?
Superintendent.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oberg,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Melissa Loring, playground monitor, effective February 5th, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. Questions, comments?
Ms. Barcheck, Ms. Loring is one of our cleaners also. She's just resigning the 1 hour a day monitor position, so she'll still continue to clean with us.
Thank you.
Good.
A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oberg,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the engagement of local government services with the Auditor of State to prepare the GAAP financial statements for fiscal year 2021, not to exceed $12,000.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Questions, comments?
Question.
Mhm.
Colleen, is this a new auditor that is going to be auditing our books, or?
No, so we still have Calvin Harris doing the audit. This is doing the gap report that comes in and pretty much does the modified to full accrual that we have for our financial statements. The gap comes in, puts it all together, and then audit comes in to audit it. LGS has been doing it for the past couple of years, and it says not to exceed 12,000, but as a reference, last year it was 5,700, and this year it's only $4,000. So I'm not
Okay.
anticipating it to be that much, but that's how it's written in the contract.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oberg,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the application for the following student activity on file in the treasurer's office. It's the Key Club student activity.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Questions, comments?
So this is just procedural. Again, hopefully next year I can have these all at the beginning of the year for one approval, but right now it's piecemeal.
That's fine. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oberg,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves transfer of funds from the General Fund 001 to the Permanent Improvement Fund 003 in the amount of $150,000.
Can I have a motion, please?
No
So
move.
moved.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Questions, comments?
How much do we have in this makeshift PI fund?
Currently, don't quote me on this, 92,000, I believe. That's
Okay.
how much we have right now in the PI fund, but I will definitely give you the exact number. I'll follow up with that.
This
Dr.
was
Jed, we got any big ticket items that we have to spend this money on?
Well, we're looking at the carpeting replacement in 3 classrooms, 3 big areas at the high school. We need to really take a look at the parking lot over by the stadium complex. We just came up with, Mrs. Neal and I talked last week, we have to do something with the underground fuel storage tank over by the bus garage, or we're going to start getting fines by the EPA. We have gutters over at the bus garage. So I would say it's some much needed improvement there. It's not really a want, it's more of a need. But this has been typically and Conley, correct me if I'm wrong, this money has already been budgeted this school year, correct?
Yes, it has. It's actually been budgeted throughout the 5-year forecast, so This is just to move the money over officially, but it's been budgeted. And $95,155 to answer Mr. Singer's question.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
some of it's still encumbered. We still got to finish up the practice field once we get our spring thaw. But really, just the things that we need to kind of address as a facility so we can move forward. But yeah.
Do we have any issues with the roof in the auditorium still?
I believe Mrs. Neal's, I'll find out for you specifically, Mr. Singer. Mrs. Neal's been doing a pretty good job keeping up on those roofs. So I think if anything, it's maintenance. I know we just did a little small section over by the band wing, over by Mr. Sullivan's offices and Ms. Cipriani's offices, but she's been doing a pretty good with upkeeping of those roofs. So I'll find out specifically for you, but I think it's just right now general maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
The other thing too is remind the board that the majority of us were on the board when we started up that 150,000 a couple years ago. You know, that was our goal since our PI failed. So that is our goal in each every year to at least have that type of money on there.
Mr.
How nice
sorry.
How nice was it to see the Plain Dealer? They listed the schools that are running levies and we weren't in there. It was kind of nice to not see our name.
True.
Yeah, I will say too, Mr. Neal, you brought up a good point. At some point, I think we need to work on putting some money away for the field because that's going to come due in 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And that's going to come pretty quickly. So
those are that, and I've looked at, I know that one certain school district that uses there a lot, it cost them $420,000.
yeah, you're probably looking at 450 for a grade, 450, 475, 500,000 to replace that. And you know, it's wonderful to have the field, but that bill becomes due pretty quickly.
Yep.
So I would think, Mr. Slattery, it's something we'll talk about at facility committee at some point this spring for sure.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Do we have any correspondence related to action information? None at this time? Okay. Does anyone else have any other business?
Just a reminder about Saturday morning, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
And then announcement of our next regular meeting of the Brooklyn Board of Education is set for March 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 in the Media Center located at Brooklyn Intermediate Middle School, 9200 Bidoff Road, Brooklyn, Ohio at 6 p.m. That is our next regular scheduled board meeting. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.